Hello, you're all very welcome along to the latest Champ.ie podcast, Ireland's premier horse racing podcast in association with Boylesports, Gowran Park Racecourse, EJ Menswear and Shamrock Thoroughbreds.
They got 200 yards to go. It's Fleming-Star. First lieutenant now on the near side comes to challenge. Fleming-Star is battling back. They're racing to the final 100 yards. First lieutenant on the near side for Brian Cooper. On the far side, Fleming-Star. Tidal Bay goes between them. So they shove the near side. And Tidal Bay is running for Paul Nichols and Andrea Graham Wiley in the most amazing chase. It's the battle of the champions now, and Hurricane Fly, the course specialist, Jeski on the inside. They fly the final flight. Hurricane Fly, Jeski on the outside are Arctic Fire. They're racing up towards the finish. Hurricane Fly from Jeski and Arctic Fire. It's a tremendous battle. The Hurricane is unbeaten at Leopardstown.
If you haven't already, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the Champ.ie YouTube channel, as it helps to get horse racing content out there to the wider audience. Barry and Cole look forward to discussing your latest #Cheltenham Ante-Post selections in the comment section below. We're on the road to Cheltenham again.
Boylesports. Don't just bet, choose wisely.
Yes, so hello and welcome back to the Road to Cheltenham Challenge, episode number 11 on the Road to Cheltenham, proudly in association, of course, with Gowran Park Racecourse, Boylesports, our betting partner, EJ Menswear, of course, up in Sligo, and Shamrock Thoroughbreds. We've had the pleasure of having Gold Cup winning jockeys on the show. We've had the pleasure, of course, having Triumph Hurdle winning jockeys on the show. Andrew McNAMARA, now the turn of the champion chase, New Mill. He must have given you a fantastic day, of course, in the champion chase.
Well, it's very good, very enjoyable. Thanks very much for having me on.
And Andrew, I suppose at the moment, how is life in the training ranks, now based outside Mullingar, I believe?
Yeah, so we've just moved to a new place out near Mullingar. So we bought a place of our own a few years back, and we've built a yard and a gallops. So we've not long moved, and so we've had trouble where we were with the health of horses. So now that we've moved, hopefully that'll turn around for us and we can kick on.
Well, thanks very much for joining the show. Can't wait to get your insight. I suppose now we're almost 2 weeks out to the Cheltenham Festival, and I suppose with your work with RTE, of course, the Dublin Racing Festival. How did you find the Dublin Racing Festival this year, Andrew?
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. The standard of horse on show is fantastic. You've got I suppose it's as good as the quality will be there at Cheltenham, but you have it condensed into 2 days, so it just comes thick and fast at you. The handicaps are really high quality races there as well. So I think there are no better 2 days of racing than that. And it was a joy to be there.
This is the show. This is the lineup. This is what we're going to discuss, Andrew, on the show. The performance star ratings. We're going to look at 3 this week. We're going to put in a tracker horse, a quick fire round, all things Cheltenham with Andrew McNamara, and of course the Supreme Novices Hurdle, the race in focus, and our Ante-Post selections right at the end. Andrew, this weekend, I suppose a lot of the clues, we've seen a lot of the clues already now, but this weekend, the 3 performances that we are going to take a look at. Game of Inches. Just when we thought, Andrew, that Coca Cabana was the number one for Close Sutton heading to the bumper, you've given him 4-star ratings for his performance at Punchestown. Is he now the number one?
I suppose it's very hard to say, especially when you've the Mullins team with so many on. You know, they're seeing what they're doing at home as well. So they'll see a lot more than we will see in one performance. But that said, they've gotten it wrong themselves before. So I know Patrick's, not always gotten the number one right. So, it is a hard thing to judge bumper horses at this stage of their career, especially when you'd be seeing homework. You get impressed by the fast horse, but they're not necessarily the good horse, especially in bumpers. It can be the more dour stare. And I would imagine this horse probably falls into that category, Game of Inches. He didn't look very fast through the race at Punchestown. He didn't turn in and show an instant quick turn of foot, but he quickened all the way to the line and finished up a very good winner at the death. Early on, he was a bit keen, bore hard in Patrick's hands. I think they were saying that they haven't worked him that hard at home because he's such a big horse, just to keep him safe and sound. But yeah, it was definitely a very impressive show. You can see why Patrick might like him as the number one.
I thought it was interesting, Willie Mullins mentioned afterwards, Andrew, that he might go down the Florida Pearl route maybe next season and Factify. He said he's obviously 6 years of age now, and he might send him straight over fences. He hasn't done that with too many, has he?
Not with too many, but as you say, Factify did it and Florida Pearl. And you can see why maybe with this horse. He does look very big in his bumper there. I haven't seen him in the skinner up close, but while he's travelling down the back there in the bumper, you can just see that he's a different size of a beast to those around him. So that wouldn't be shocking to hear.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. You made the point about Patrick, and obviously the last 6 Close Sutton train winners of the champion bumper, Patrick has only been on 3 of the 6, so doesn't always get it right. I'm sure it'll be a tough decision. On that, who would you pick from what you saw so far? I know it's tough to say, but who would you side with out of the 2?
I would probably go with him, Game of Inches. Yeah, I do think he can be the stayer, even though it's only 2 miles of Cheltenham bumper. It's often the horse who turns out to be the more of a stayer wins it, and Game of Inches does look that type of horse.
Andrew, Tripoli Flyer, obviously with a Kempton at the weekend. Fergal O'Brien just interviewed before we came on the show on Racing TV, and he did say if the ground came up nice, he'd love to run him. But like you, look, you've given him 2 stars. Jumping would need to improve for a Supreme, would it?
By a mile, yeah. I think the level of a race was okay. It would be good enough to merit going and giving the Supreme a go, but it wouldn't, put him up near the top of the betting. But that said, he jumped very badly. He was slow to leave the ground, didn't jump entirely straight. At the second last, he was a little bit long. Johnny gave him a good kick down to it, and he came up but barely got there, really reaching for it, and then went down to the last under no pressure, ran right across it, put down, galloped through it. I think when the pressure comes on a Supreme Novice hurdle, his jumping's really going to be found out. And for me, he can't improve that much from run to run to jump well enough in a Supreme. I think really he'll be found out in a Supreme. I'd say within a mile, his jumping will have him out of the race.
Spindlebury, obviously Willie Mullins has Dino Blue and of course Allegory de Vassy for the Mayor's Chase. Spindlebury is the gap between Fairyhouse and Cheltenham. I think Willie Mullins didn't make reference, might have come too soon. What about the performance first?
It didn't look as if she had an overly hard race. Paul was easy enough on her, jumped out good and handy, but when challenged for the lead, he let it go, and she galloped away well from the back of the last. So I don't think she'd too hard a race. I'd say she could line up no problem, but Willie has a good lineup for the race already, so I don't know if he'd go or not. He might line her up elsewhere. The other 2 are not novices. She's a novice. She's probably maybe not as good as the other 2, but on the day, it was a good performance. She jumped relatively well. She's a nice way of doing things, good and economical. It was a good performance out of her. She's ticked every box for that race. Whether that lines her up good enough for the Mayor's Chase at Cheltenham, I would think probably not.
Andrew, tracker horse, what have you got over the last 7 days, or even dating back to the Dublin Racing Festival? What is the one horse that we're going to put into the tracker this week on the road to Cheltenham?
I'm going to skip Cheltenham and go for an entry one. I really like the way Intense Raffles ran in the Bobby Joe at Fairyhouse. All the talk after the Tyestas was Nick Rocket. When the weights came out, it was all Nick Rocket. After the Bobby Joe, it was Nick Rocket. But a really eye-catching performance in behind him was Spindlebury. It was Intense Raffles. He'd had 2 spins around over hurdles, which didn't go great, you'd have to say, through the year. But, those Grand National types don't necessarily do as well over hurdles. And he ran a really lovely race, jumped well, travelled well, didn't have an overly hard race, and was only beaten 3/4 of a length. And I think there's something from the Bobby Joe to the Grand National. There's something like a 15 pounds turnaround between what they'll carry in the handicap and the conditions race the other day. So I'd say Thomas Gibney will have been going home delighted and like an excited schoolboy, looking forward to the National.
Yes, so hello, Barry Doyle from the Champ.ie podcast, Ireland's premier horse racing podcast. I'm here with my co-host, David Burns, and we're here in Sligo Town, David, in EJ Menswear and EJMenswear.com. Fantastic season ahead. EJ has kindly partnered up with us to be the men's fashion partner with Champ.ie for the season. And David, we're suited and booted. You're looking sharp.
Yeah, well, thanks very much. And this fantastic bundle and this outfit we're wearing is costing $2.99. It sets you up beautifully for the racing season ahead, which includes Leopardstown at Christmas, Tyestas Day at Gowran Park, and of course, if you want to go even bigger, you can get togged out for the Cheltenham and Entry festivals later on in the season.
Absolutely, and of course, check out the Champ.ie podcast right through the season, Mondays and Thursdays, and look at the offer, the tailored bundle for the racing season, $2.99, blazer, shirt, chino, socks and shoes. What's not to like, lads? Check out EJMenswear.com to find out all the racing offers. There you are now, Andrew, heading up to Leopardstown when you're on RTE duty. You know where to go, EJ
I'd have
Menswear.
to go and fly by myself, yeah.
Not too far, actually. Yeah, absolutely. And well, if we can pick you up on the way across from Dundalk the next time we're heading up to EJ's, we're 299. Anyone heading to Cheltenham, what a cracking offer for the Taylor bundle. And yeah, fair play to EJ for his support on the show. Competition as well coming up this week with EJ Menswear as well. So stay tuned on our, it's going to be a Wednesday show this week, our Cheltenham Festival preview evening, of course. Lots to look forward to this upcoming Wednesday. Right, Andrew, quick fire round. Obviously, we have to start off with New Mill. I mean, he went off 16-1 for the Champion Chase. He was a very big price on the day, but what a winner he was. Tell us, I suppose, about the build-up, the race itself, and the aftermath as well. Connections, I'm sure they celebrated that one.
Yeah, the build-up, he'd been a good novice hurdler with Tomás O'Leary and then had lost his way as a novice chaser and ended up in John Murphy's. And yeah, he started off the season, he had a couple of runs over hurdles in the champion hurdle and the Christmas hurdle maybe at Leopardstown, and ran 2 very good races. And then actually got off him then his next run. He'd ridden High Cloy to win a couple of great runs, and they both met in Thurles. And I was working on Michael Harrigan's at the time, so I rode High Cloy, and High Cloy ran a stinker, and Newman went and won with Robbie Power. But whether I'd riddden him or not at Cheltenham, Robbie got injured in the meantime. So yeah, I got back on him for Cheltenham, and yeah, there wasn't, I suppose, a huge hype beforehand, but John was fairly confident, and the horse was working absolutely brilliantly. He was a really keen horse, a powerful horse, and the trouble with him was always containing him. And yeah, his last couple of pieces of work, he was kind of explosive. And then, but yeah, on the morning, we were very confident. I remember going out to the race, before the race, and I was chatting to John Thomas, and he says, well, what will this fella do? I said, this will win, yeah, this will win. So it wouldn't be, a normal attitude I had, but definitely was going out very confident. Now, Couta Star was in the race and he fell. So with the benefit of hindsight, perhaps we mightn't have won if he'd have stayed on his feet.
And James Delay, obviously, in the training ranks now himself, didn't he have a big part to play in that horse as well down in, or of course, I'd say he meant a lot to the County Cork community as a whole.
He did, yeah. James definitely had a big part to play, and I get on well with James now, and even still lucky enough to ride a winner or two for James. So yeah, he played a big role in that. But John and George Murphy as well, they're gone on to big things in the flat now as well.
What do you make of the Champion Chase picture this season?
It looks a very exciting race. I think it's wide open. Of all the hot pots, I think John Bunn is a bit susceptible. Not in the fact that I have anything majorly against John Bunn, but jumping isn't absolutely brilliant for a champion chaser. And while he's very talented, the others, there's a lot of good horses in there. And I think he needs, if he's at his best, performs his best, I think John Bunn wins, but I think he will need to be there. There's a bunch of them just clipping at his heels that will be, very close if he falters in any way.
17 wins from 20 in his career, all 3 defeats, all 3 of his defeats have come at Cheltenham. His horses for courses, I think that's a big worry heading into Cheltenham for him.
Yeah, I can see why he possibly mightn't be as good around there, but take one of those was getting run over by Constitution Hill when he put in a fantastic performance himself. So yeah. I think the likes of that, you can take that in the chin. I think that's fair and square. So no, I wouldn't be overly worried about Cheltenham. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think he's a stone worse around there. Maybe perhaps a couple of pounds. When
we were talking just earlier on, you mentioned to me that Solness, he obviously impressed you at Leopardstown. He was, how do you think he'll get on? I mean, I don't think he's actually raced around Cheltenham. His jumping's electric though.
His jumping is electric, and that's the thing you do need for a champion chaser. Be interesting to see if both himself and Ile France line up. Don't know if Ile France is going for this or the Ryanair, but they're 2 brilliant jumpers. Probably Ile France is even more spectacular. And if the 2 of them go off and go a good gallop, and to be a sight to be seen to see the 2 of them jumping together, that would be very exciting. Solness was, I suppose, took everyone by surprise under JJ at Christmas, but then he goes and really backs it up under Danny at the Dublin Racing Festival. Now, on RTE, we probably got into a bit of a hullabaloo with Hugh Cahill saying that, giving out about the other jockeys, and we were saying how they did the right thing or whatever. But I think what got overshadowed in the whole thing was what a good performance Solness put in and what a good ride Danny gave him. Yeah, it was really good. He beat the best of the Irish and beat them fair and square. He's beaten most of them twice now. So while he was a horse who came through the ranks, you wouldn't have picked him out as a champion chaser. I think his last 2 performances really put him bang there and with a chance.
Just on the hot pots, you mentioned obviously, you know, in the 5 championship races, obviously we favours Constitution Hill, Jonbon, Tiupu, Factify, and Gallop and the Champ. You mentioned you thought Jonbon might be the most vulnerable. Who do you think is the most solid of those? Who would you be?
I can't see Gallop and the Champ beaten. I think he's a wonder horse. Like, he's really, I remember watching Sprinter Sacra and being jealous of Barry Geraghty getting to ride him. But I'd be that way now looking at Paul Town and going around in this fella. He looks absolutely beautiful to ride and jumps brilliantly, just does everything right. So I think he's a fabulous horse. I think there's very little holes in him once you go to that distance of a race. So maybe, you know, he's been beaten around Punchestown after the Gold Cup. He gets beaten in the John Durkin. But I think you get up to 3 miles at Leopardstown, where it's a real galloping track, or you go further and you go the 3.25 miles at Cheltenham. I think he's going to be very, very hard to beat. And the other factor is, I'd say the race in Cheltenham, the Gold Cup, for once, is actually going to be a lesser race than the Irish Gold Cup was, which is a very unusual thing to say. But the home team looked fairly weak, and Factify looks fairly certain to go for the Ryanair. Grange Clare West might go for the Grand National, you know, so I think that race could cut up a bit.
What did you think of Corbett's cross run at Ascot? I mean, if the ground came up very, very testing, 3 mile 2, obviously he won over 3.6 in the National Hunt. Would you make him genuinely an each way player in the Gold Cup? What did you make of his run at Ascot?
Possibly running to an each way place, yeah. I'd say, like, I can't see him being within a stone of Gallop and the Champ at all. I'd have a little worry about him for a Gold Cup horse is jumping. I think he's, you know, he went around lovely there last year, completely under no pressure. Derek Connor giving him a lovely ride, popping, and came home very well off a slow pace. But I think, don't think he's got huge scope. So I think under Gold Cup pressure, if he's put into the race at the top of the hill, I don't think his jumping would hold up to it. That's
Gold Cup. Now, Andrew, what do you make of the champion hurdle picture? Because Brighter Days Ahead and Lossy Out, I think connections, there seem to be, all the vibes now are that Brighter Days Ahead might go down the champion hurdle. Do you think the two of them will run the champion hurdle, Lossy Out and Brighter Days Ahead?
They should do, shouldn't they? It'd be great to see it. Looks like, you know, it's shaping up to be a really good champion hurdle if they both run. I mean, you have the 2 previous winners, Constitution Hill and Stateman, and then you have these 2 mares. You know, last year's mare's winner lost him out, and the Brighter Days Ahead coming through as this big, you know, huge performance at Christmas time. You know, was it that Statement flopped that badly, or was she just exceptional on the day? It looked like she was, well, I suppose it looked like both happened. The Statement definitely flopped, but it looks like she put in a serious performance. So I'd very much like to see them both show up. You know, if they go against each other in the mare's hurdle, that might be a decent race. But if one of them goes for the mare's hurdle, you would think it's a foregone conclusion that they'd win it. I see Eddie O'Leary saying that they should go for the mare's hurdle, but they may go, but the champion hurdle is champion hurdle. Yeah, I don't see why you should go for the mare's hurdle. I mean, it's kind of come to be the thought process now in Cheltenham that you go for the race that you are going to win. But I mean, winning the mare's hurdle is not the same thing as winning the champion hurdle. So yeah.
Do you think they'll both go down the champion hurdle route this season?
I would think they will. I'd like to think they will, yeah. I'd say Lossy Mouth is really good. She's won her mare's hurdle. I don't think winning another mare's hurdle is going to prove a lot for her. So I think she will. The O'Learys have had so many Cheltenham winners, and they've won Gold Cups. They haven't won a champion hurdle. They don't often have, they buy more of the Gold Cup type. They don't often have champion hurdle horses. So now they have a real contender, and I can't see why you wouldn't go. And that shapes it up to be a brilliant race, because Constitution Hill, you hope, is the superhero that we've, you know, he's definitely shown that. It's been a while since he really has been put under pressure to really show himself. So you're hoping that a proper field shows up to take him on in the champion hurdle. He's, in all likelihood, if they both show up, he is a better horse than Stateman. He's probably a better horse than the other two as well. But yeah, it could make for a champion hurdle for the ages if all 4 go to post.
Paul Townend, who does he ride? Call it.
I think Stateman. Although funny, well, he went for Stateman in the Dublin Racing Festival. It all looked, you know, very 50-50. No one had played their cards when Lossy Mouth fell, but he kind of looked sluggish from their home. Whether it was, I don't know, whether it was Paul leaving him do that, and that's just the way he looks. But yeah, anyway, it's probably a thing of nothing. But the vibe in the yard I get is that Stateman is a better horse than Lossiemouth. Paul obviously has that vibe if he went for him over her at the Dublin Racing Festival, and I'd be surprised to see him change now.
I'm going to put my hand up and say I think he might ride Lossiemouth. For some reason, there's something nagging at me, Andrew. We'll see how it plays out. East India Dock versus Lalamba. Do you think the British juveniles have the edge? And if they do, which way would you side? Would you go at East India Dock or Lalamba at this moment in time?
I'm going to have to sit in the fence here a little bit in that, well, maybe I suppose a good East India Dock. He was a good flat horse, and he really looks to love the hurdling. He is game at his hurdles. He really attacks. I think Gredley said some horse last year. Everyone was hyping, but he hated jumping hurdles. This fella looks to me like he loves it. He's good at it. He definitely stays. Galloped all the way to the line last time. And then Lulumba is very different. Very different in that he looks a big, lovely horse, but he won an okay hurdle in Auteuil, and he's gone and had a spin around here where he jumped very well, looked a lovely horse, looked impressive, but didn't beat anything Triumph Hurdle standard. So it's very hard to judge what level Lulumba is at. But yeah, Willie doesn't have, there was 2 years ago, the Lossiemouth year, I think Willie had like the 5th or 6th best juvenile hurdlers in Ireland and England. He doesn't have that strong a team this year. But Gavin Cromwell's horse, Hello Neighbour, is definitely a major player. And Gavin gives him a very positive word. I think the last time Gavin heard him talking about a horse was Espoir Dallin. Now maybe he's not saying he's in that league, but yeah, he definitely thinks a lot of this horse.
Willie Mullins obviously unleashed 2 absolute monsters, Andrew, up at the Dublin Racing Festival. Copic de Boer and Final Demand. 2 really impressive novice performances. If you could take one home, which one would you take home?
Definitely Copic de Boer. I thought he was phenomenal. Take nothing away from Final Demand, but I think it was a race that maybe fell apart a little bit. While he looked as if he demolished them from the back of the last, the others were stopping. But Copic de Boer has, every race he's running, he's shown it. He bolted up in the George Murna bumper, bolted up in a maiden hurdle, and then his maiden hurdle was very messy. He made about 6 mistakes, kept jumping out to the left. Paul then at the Dublin Racing Festival has lined him up a bit wide, make sure he's something on his inside, get him jumping straight. So he gets him jumping straight, relatively settled. From the word go, it was a nice tidy performance. End of the back straight, he's left on his own in front, and he still stays straight. I had to worry at that stage. When on his own, he'd go left, but he didn't. He's jumped fairly well throughout. And then he gets wiped out by a loose horse. And you think, oh, he's in trouble here. Within 5 strides, he's just bounded clear of the field. He's put it to bed. It's all over. He's absolutely bolted up. This was a freakish performance. I think this was a performance of a horse that could be in a Galopin des Champs. Well, a very different type of horse, but that kind of level, a Constitution Hill level, this could be the next superhero coming through.
Would you worry about his temperament, or I suppose how keen he was in the early part of the race at Leopardstown, heading to Cheltenham?
Yeah, I wouldn't like it, and I wouldn't like the way he jumped left. But his last run, he was fairly keen, but nothing major. He did get into a rhythm. He jumped fairly well. I'd say he ran in second, ended up in front a long way out. I would possibly say they might ride him a little bit more restrained. I'd say they could maybe ride him down the inner one off the rail, 5th or 6th, and get him covered up a little bit. He looks like a horse that has so much pace that you could land him into the race whenever you wanted. So yeah, it wouldn't be ideal. And there's the hype at Cheltenham, but I don't think he's nuts, and I think they'll ride him just slightly differently, a little bit more contained.
Best piece of advice you were ever given?
I suppose as a rider, maybe, well, I don't know if I was given it, but this game is definitely things come around and turn around. So if you're very disappointed something goes wrong one day, or if someone loses a job, or if they can't get a ride or something, just keep plugging away at it, because opportunities will eventually come, and if you're good enough and you work hard enough, they will definitely come your way. And I suppose from a training perspective, I'm probably still waiting on that bit of advice myself.
What's the number one race you'd love to win as a trainer, Andrew?
I'd say the Gold Cup. Yeah, I think it's the be all and end all, and it'd be lovely to have that type of a horse as well. There's something lovely about a big staying chaser that, just a lovely big horse. lovely to ride, they're great to jump, they're everything. So yeah, I'd love to have that type of a horse, and I suppose the Gold Cup is the be all and end all, isn't it?
Absolutely right. When we come back, we're going to put in our Ante-Post selection for episode number 11 of the Road to Cheltenham Challenge. When we come back after this quick ad break.
From Dundalk to Longchamp, from the Galway races to the Breeders' Cup, Shamrock Thoroughbreds have taken owners all over the world.
Tiger Bell in front, holds them. Late on the scene is Dawn Charger storming home, but Tiger Bell in front and won.
Coming through the centre, Laugh a Minute with a strong challenge on this Laugh a Minute, who goes on the closing stages to win by a length and a half. Laugh a Minute from Fiscal Roots.
But it's Harry's Bar repelling the late challenge of the stable companion Dream Today, and Harry's Bar makes it 6-course wins.
Check out shamrockthoroughbreds.com or click the link in the Champ.ie podcast video description to learn more about new racehorse ownership opportunities.
Yes, and of course, don't forget as well at Gowran Park on Saturday the 8th of March, of course, the racing and rugby package on the eve of the Cheltenham Festival is always a big day, of course. Shamrock Chase Day down at Gowran Park, and looking forward to be down there, of course, on the day, and to head over to Gowranpark.ie to get your early bird tickets ahead of what promises to be a fantastic day down at Gowran Park once again. Andrew, no pressure on the Road to Cheltenham Challenge. We're building a nice little portfolio heading to the Cheltenham Festival, and I do believe you've gone with one in the very first edition of the Novice Handicap Chase, which is now called the Jack Richards Novice Handicap Chase. I do believe it's on the Thursday at Cheltenham. You've got with one in here.
Yeah, I've gone with Jordan. So nice horse for Joseph O'Brien. He's lovely jumper, put in some good performances of late. I don't think they've overly exposed him, so he could be still well handicapped. And for a flat trainer, Joseph's doing fairly well with the jumpers this year and has a good record around Cheltenham as well. So I would say he's a horse they've not fully exposed and kept back with this in mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, ran in the Faheen Novices Chase, didn't he, at Limerick over the Christmas period? And he was kind of an eye catcher late on, wasn't he, Andrew?
Yeah, stayed on very well late. Second to Imperial Pass, who's a very good horse. Proper Grade 1 level horse. That was a Grade 1, and yeah, did catch the eye coming home late and wide. So yeah, I'd say even in that race, they probably had the festival in mind. So I think he's been laid out for this, say 18-1 for a horse set up by as yard as good as that is going to be good value.
I'm going to head to the Mayor's Chase on the Friday at Cheltenham, and Andrew, I don't know your thoughts on Dino Blue, but she's gone off 11-8, 7-2, 15-8 favoured on 3 occasions at the festival in the past. And look, Allegory Devasti's second in the market. I'm not sure she's progressive at the minutes, and I'm not sure that Nace form is something I'd like to be trusting maybe heading into the festival. Telepathique is the selection on episode number 11, a 7-year-old mare with just 10 runs in her entire career. She's improved 45 pounds for Lucy Wadham this season, 4 from 5 over fences. This is some mare, Andrew, to jump a fence. I'm not sure if you saw her performance at Huntington, but she was absolutely winging fences. She's proven over the distance. She's beaten Brides Hill, who I know plenty of people did fancy Brides Hill heading into Cheltenham last year. She was taken out, I think, due to the ground. This mare was obviously receiving, I think it was £5 from Brides Hill. But I think if you're racing off levels here, I don't think the result changes. And I just think this mare is really, really progressive. I love the way she ran through the line. I love the way she picked up 2 out as well at Telepathique. And I'm not sure if you saw her performance at Huntington, but I actually think she's a big player at 11-1 for the Mayor's Chase. It looks an open race to me this year.
Yeah, I'd say there's plenty of depth in it. It's a fairly good race, especially with a lot of novices in it. I think Dino Blue is very good. If she does produce her best, I'd say she'd be very, very hard to beat. But, you're talking about a mare who's on a progression. Dino Blue is not on a progression. We know exactly what she is, and she hasn't been foot perfect of late. So if she shows up, she wins, but there's no guarantee about that.
Really, I just think Telepathique 11-1 each way. I think there's value. That's the Mayor's Chase. You put up Jordan's for.
Sounds strong on this, Barry.
Yeah, I think she's a big price at double figures. I just love the way she jumps. I love the way she picked up, as I said, 2 out. And I really love the way she hit the line. I think her closing section was very, very impressive. And
when you see a mare like that, you'd think she shouldn't improve that much. you know, they go up 20 pounds, you think, oh, that should be done. For a mare to go up that far, you know, you couldn't have foreseen it at the start of the season. So how do you know where it's going to stop once they're on the increase? But it's going to have to stop somewhere. But yeah, whether that's now or not, who knows? Yeah, now maybe there was some reason. Sometimes you find that there would have been a reason back along for a horse why she started this big, massive improve. But neither I nor you know that.
I remember hearing an interview after the race at Lucy Water. I think she'd some sort of a hold up, and she felt as though the handicapper was way out of with 104. She felt as though this mare was very well handicapped, and the big target is the mare's chase. So Lucy Waddams, she's done well with mares. Obviously, we saw Martello Sky improve. Teresita has progressed to the handicap ranks this season, so she knows what to do with it with a mare like this. And I think it would be the very first British train winner of the mare's chase. I think JP McManus, has he won 3 of the last 4, Andrew? If that's correct?
That's interesting about the mares trained. I think the poor British trainers are going to struggle again this year. I'd say they're far outstacked.
What would you say the Presbury Cup? I think was it 17-9 last season? What would you anticipate the score to be this year?
I'd say something similar. Yeah, I'd say it's going to be a tough week for them. Definitely a lot of those bigger races. You know, they've Constitution Hill and John Bunn, but I'd say the novices, they're going to get hockeyed.
Really looking forward to Cheltenham, Andrew. Heading over any of the days yourself?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go over for Tuesday. That looks a great day. And then I'm not sure when I'll come home. I don't really intend going for the 4 days, but I'd love to be there to see Galopin Des Champs in the Gold Cup. So he might tempt me to hang around.
Boylesports. Don't just bet. Choose wisely.
Yeah, so Andrew, absolute pleasure having you on the road to Cheltenham Challenge. Really looking forward to, of course, Presbury Park in 2 weeks' time now. Really looking forward to it, and I wish you all the best, I suppose. This season, before we finish up, is there any horse in your own yard that you think viewers, I suppose, or followers of the podcast should be keeping an eye out for?
Well, I suppose we've enjoyed the Dream, who maybe hasn't had the season we'd have hoped she would have. She's taken to fences okay from her schooling at home. I thought she'd have done a little bit better. So she goes on Thursday in Clonmel. So I suppose that's the closest one coming up anyway. So she should go close there.
Wish you all the best, Andrew. We cannot wait for the Cheltenham Festival. 2 weeks out, and just 3 more episodes left on this series. We'll be, of course, back next Monday, and we'll have 2 episodes the following week as we build up to the festival. Really looking forward to it. And Andrew McNamara, brilliant having you on the show with us this week.
Boylesports. Don't just bet. Choose wisely.